This is a Kelly's Angels production.
Hi, I'm Mark Mulholland, and you're listening to The Upbeat, a podcast about perseverance and hope from Kelly's Angels. On this episode of The Upbeat, we're going to have some fun. We've all heard the expressions, laughter is the best medicine, so today we're going to do our best to make all of our listeners smile and laugh.
The Upbeat is made possible by the generosity of our sponsors. Special thanks to our media partner, 32 Mile Productions. This episode of The Upbeat is sponsored by the Boebert Family Fund, Glens Falls Hospital, BN Communications, and Mohawk Honda.
You can't help but smile when listening to that baby belly laugh. Laughter is contagious, and it makes us feel better. In fact, there's evidence that laughter can positively impact our health. According to the Mayo Clinic, when we laugh, we take in more air that's rich in oxygen, and that increases endorphins released by the brain, which reduces stress. Before we get to our interview and some laughs with comedian Steve Van Zandt, let me help frame why this topic of laughter is near and dear to Kelly's Angels and our mission to help families smile again after losing a parent or a child. Let's check in with one of our regular podcast guests, psychologist Dr. Jerry Florio, on why helping kids to laugh and have fun, even in the midst of grief, can be healing. Kelly's Angels is a 501c3 charity which started 10 years ago after the loss of Kelly Mulholland, leaving behind Connor, who was 7, my son, and McKenna, who was 5 at the time, my daughter. We started it to provide fund grants to children in the capital region of New York. We call them fund grants. It was allowing a child to do whatever their heart desired, to bring a smile to their face after suffering a horrible loss of a parent to cancer or a sibling to cancer. And we've expanded now to help children and families who are currently battling. You were one of our founding board members, and I'm grateful for that. But I remember talking to you very early on about whether we were going down the right path, whether there was a niche, and you've been a big advocate of in my view, of helping the entire family.
Especially for kids, fun is so important. You know, kids do not grieve like adults. They're not little adults. And they are very immediate, and they need to have fun, and they can have fun. And it doesn't mean they're in denial. You know, at the camp we do for kids, you know, they will be talking about really serious things, showing a lot of emotion. We leave the room, they're running, they're skipping, they're picking up, you know, sticks and playing, and that's genuine. As adults, we're still thinking about everything that was said in there, but they need to have fun. And so having the opportunities to have fun is really, you know, tremendously healing for kids.
Let's take a quick break now to thank our underwriters, and then I'll be joined by Robert De Niro, also known as comedian and impressionist Steve Van Zandt.
You believe this guy? First time, right out of the box. He gets De Niro. It's unbelievable. Here's a gift. This Mark Mulholland, whatever, what's a street named after him in LA or something, I think, right?
Support for The Upbeat comes from 32 Mile Productions, a full-service video production agency that specializes in uncovering stories to create meaningful content that is compelling and memorable. Learn more at 32mile.com. The Boebert Family Fund, which supports charitable organizations that efficiently use the resources they have to make a disproportionate impact on the world around them. Glens Falls Hospital, an affiliate of the Albany Med Health System. Glens Falls Hospital is an award-winning community hospital providing access to exceptional, affordable, and patient-centered care to residents across a 5-county region of upstate New York. Learn more at glensfallshospital.org. BN Communications, which provides strategic counsel in public relations, crisis communications, community relations, public affairs, and corporate communications to clients across several industry sectors and across the U.S. Learn more at bncommunications.com. Mohawk Honda is a family-owned car dealership serving New York's capital region. Beyond selling new and used Honda vehicles and providing high-quality auto service and parts, Mohawk Honda has an unwavering commitment to the community it serves. Learn more at mohawkhonda.com.
We have a very special guest on the Upbeat today, a man who makes his living making people laugh. I'm pleased to welcome my friend, comedian and impressionist, Steve Van Zandt. Steve, thanks for taking some time for us.
Hey, Mark, my pleasure. It's been a long time. It's really good to see you.
It's good to see you, too. How are you? How are things?
I'm going to be totally truthful. I've had better years, along with many millions of other people. But, you know, life is good, and I got very little to complain about in the grand scheme of things. So I guess I'm okay.
Steve, tell us a little bit about your career. I'm familiar with it from your time in the Capital Region as a comic and comedian, but you've made people laugh all over the world. How did you get involved, and what's the best part of it?
Well, how did I get involved? Comedy kind of picks you, I think, is the best way to describe it. Big family, big Catholic family, middle child, starving for attention. And I discovered at a relatively early age, I think that most comics would agree with this, is that if you've got a sense of humor, people are attracted to you in a positive way. And you kind of take it from there. You know, by the time I got into high school, I was your classic, class clown. I had a gift for mimicry, at least I discovered it at an early age. And I would imitate teachers and my part-time bosses and things like that. And that sometimes would get me in trouble, but I parlayed that into getting a couple local gigs. Along came a show called The Gong Show in the 70s, if you remember.
Sure.
Next thing I know, I'm 18-year-old kid flying to LA, being on a plane for the first time. I did The Gong Show, and then it just kind of from there, it just kind of took a life of its own. Do
you have a favorite impression? I mean, you do wonderful impressions. You've done impressions for many, many years. You've made a career out of it.
Right. I do have some favorites. As a huge fan, well, as a child of the 70s, and Johnny Carson, I was always a huge Johnny Carson fan. It was one of my first impressions, and of course, he had a lot of mannerisms. It was so cold in Saratoga Springs yesterday that I saw a snowman wearing a sweater. You know, the goofy stuff like that. But I always loved those mannerisms he had, and their voice was rather unusual. It's a very weird voice.
It always occurs to me that someone who does impressions well has to have an incredible ear. They hear it better than most of us.
To do this, you have to be able to hear yourself as other people hear you. When I hear the impression come out, I have to hear it the same way you hear it. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit off. But I've always had a knack for the mimicry thing. You know. Do
people who've seen you know you well enough? Do they make requests like they do of musicians?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I have friends that have certain impressions, and a lot of times I'll diffuse things with impressions. You know, we'll be in a situation someplace, maybe we're at a bar or something like that. Somebody's getting a little out of hand, and I'll just become Christopher Lloyd or something like that, going, "We have to stop drinking so much and go back to the future because we're not as young as we used to be, Marty. Don't be crazy. Don't get yourself thrown in jail over a stupid beer. It doesn't make any sense. We got 1.21 gigawatts. And then we got to get the hell out of here and go back to 1985. But
and it works, right? I'm sure. I would hope it would work.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to segue here a little bit, Steve. How has laughter helped you in difficult situations?
Like all human beings, I've had pain in my life. I went through a divorce. You lose a parent. You lose I had a nephew who took his own life. I had some really painful moments in my life. We all know medically that if you have depression, anxiety, fear, these things are all bad for your health. Everybody knows that. Okay. Psychologically, they're just not good for you. They bring your resistance down. Comedy is the antithesis of that. Comedy is like it's not a cure, but it's certainly something you can go to offset those negative things. And I think comedy is a gift. Humor it's right up there with love, in terms of changing your whole emotional state, and you can almost do it instantly.
You're in a career which I guess each new gig might have be rooted in rejection. I mean, you're in a career where you get rejected. The nature of the business is that you don't get every gig that you're seeking, that you don't get every role
Absolutely.
That you're seeking. How have you personally dealt with that? How have you persevered? The focus of our podcast is often perseverance, persevering
right.
through adversity. How have you persevered?
It's interesting that you bring that up because you take COVID, for example. literally wiped out my entire schedule for the year and into next year. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm on Facebook, and a lot of my comedian friends from all over the country are on Facebook, and we're friends, and they're kind of in the same boat as I am to a certain degree. And I, you know what? They're using humor to get through it. They say comedy is the hardest thing. It really is very, very difficult. So not only is it difficult to find gigs in this day and age because of COVID and just when you're moving up the ladder, but you have the rejection of the audience now and then too. That can set you back, especially if you're just starting out. You know, it's a terrifying thing to go up there and by itself, just getting in front of people, but then to get rejected after getting all your courage up to actually try it. I'm talking about the younger guys. That takes a special kind of oomph to kind of come back from that, you know? So as far as myself, I think that the best way to do it is to focus on what you can do. And I can write, I can find other ways of finding work and things like that. And in terms of like dealing with emotional things, you know, comedy, like everything else, you can use it as a tool to distract yourself.
What do you enjoy most about what you do?
And I can't think of a better job than when you're done with it, if you did your job well, that people leave their connection to you in a better place than they were than when they started the evening. And that sounds kind of corny, but that's really the ultimate high. There's really nothing like being on stage and you're just clicking and it's happening. And I talk to comedians about this all the time. There is nothing else like it. We got a lot to be thankful for. We're blessed. We got a lot to be thankful for. And things will get better.
They will. And that's a good place to wrap it up. Steve, thank you so much. Steve Van Zandt, longtime friend
Mark,
and a terrific comic and comedian. And
you have a gift. Don't let anybody tell you. You have a gift.
It was great to connect with you. I appreciate it. I really do.
Mark. One of these days we got to get together when this crazy stuff's over and have a beer.
And before we wrap up this episode, I want to play a little piece of a recent conversation I had with breast cancer survivor Sarah Cadaret. I asked her about using humor to get through tough times. Listen what she had to say, and then make sure you subscribe to The Upbeat to hear her amazing story on a future episode. You always seem to be able to find the bright side in things. Halloween came around at one point, didn't it?
I had my surgery to remove the infected side, and my girlfriend was in the hospital with us, and it was a week from Halloween. And Jay and I were going back and forth. We're like, oh, will you be Forrest Gump and Jenny from, Forrest Gump? And then I was like, no, Jay should be a carnival worker, and I will be the balloon pop game. So I had 9 balloons taped to my shirt, and then on my right side where I had the breast removed was a popped balloon with a dart through it. So we go to a Halloween party. Some people got it, friends got it, but some people were like, what is the point? And I was like, you don't notice I only have one breast? And they're like, oh, now I get it. But I was like, what are the chances of being able to do that?
Was that difficult though? I mean,
it wasn't. I also called myself the uni-boober.
How do you laugh about that though? How were you able to laugh about that? Or is it that the only thing you can do?
Yeah, because I had no control. This is the cards that were dealt to me. And I had no control. So you have to laugh.
Until next time, I'm Mark Mulholland. Take care and stay on The Upbeat.
Special thanks to our media partner, 32 Mile Productions, for their help in recording our episodes. Emily Yan, a graphic designer and art director who invested her time and talent to create our podcast logo. Videographer, editor, and Kelly's Angels board member, Lou Graff. Coordinating producer and Kelly's Angels board member, Jenny Sperano. And all the volunteer Kelly's Angels board members who had a hand in making this podcast possible. Thanks for listening to The Upbeat.